The first sound was laughter, sharp, expensive, and cruel. The kind of laughter that could slice through a symphony. A crystal flute of champagne hit the marble floor, shattering in front of her heels. The golden liquid splashed against the hem of her midnight blue gown, staining it like spilled arrogance. Heads turned. The string quartet faltered. Conversation stuttered mid-sentence as the sound rippled to the Grand Regency Hotel's crystal atrium, the most coveted ballroom in New York. "Security!" A woman's voice snapped, dripping with disgust. "Get this woman out before she stains the marble any further." The crowd parted like curtains, revealing Eleanor Lennox, matriarch of the Lennox dynasty, a woman so surgically sculpted she looked more like an oil painting than a human being. Her sequin gold gown caught the chandelier light, dazzling in every direction. She stood with a champagne glass in one hand, posture imperial, expression venomous. At her side, her husband, Senator Thomas Lennox, eyes hard and commanding. Their son, Bradley, an investment banker with a smirk that said untouchable, and his wife, Sienna, an influencer whose phone was already filming. And at the center of their golden circle stood Zariah Cole, frozen, her hand still clutching the invitation that had been snatched and torn in half. Her voice was calm, careful, almost too polite. "There must be some mistake." "There's no mistake," Eleanor interrupted, smiling like a shark. "We don't invite gatecrashers to seven-figure galas. You people think you can just walk in because you can dress up?" The words struck like slaps. The crowd murmured, low, scandalized gasps blending with the clicks of phones unlocking. Screens began recording. Zariah's throat tightened, but her face remained composed. She was used to being underestimated. Just not like this. Not in front of 200 of New York's most powerful figures. Sienna's camera tilted slightly. "Oh my God, my followers are going to die when they see this," she whispered. "Look, she's literally pretending she belongs here." Her husband chuckled. "Babe, she probably found that dress at Macy's." A ripple of laughter. Each comment was another crack in the floor beneath Zariah's dignity. A young man from security hesitated near the edge of the crowd, uncertainty flickering across his face. He looked from Zariah to the Lennox family, a moral crossroads playing out in real time. But the senator's raised hand settled it. "You heard my wife. Handle it." The guard stepped forward, voice low and awkward. "Ma'am, I'll need to see your invitation, an ID." Zariah inhaled slowly. She could feel the air changing, a suffocating blend of perfume, champagne, and superiority. She opened her clutch and handed him her phone. The digital invitation gleamed on screen. Before he could scan it, Eleanor's hand darted out, snatching the phone. "You really think you can Photoshop your way into our world?" She held the phone up like evidence in a courtroom. "It's pathetic." Zariah's control faltered, just slightly. "That's a verified link," she said evenly. "Issued by the event organizer's office. You can confirm." "Confirm what?" Bradley cut in, sneering. "That you came here to network your way into someone's pocket?" The crowd's laughter spread, emboldened by the family's cruelty. Someone whispered, "Oh, this is going viral." Another said, "She's brave showing up here." Brave or stupid. Sienna's camera was still rolling. "Guys, we're live from the Regency Gala," she announced breathlessly. "Caught a little drama, stay tuned." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "She says she's invited. Can you believe?" Flashes erupted. Every angle captured Zariah's stillness. The poised figure of a black woman surrounded by luxury and venom, her dignity shining brighter than the chandelier above. Eleanor leaned closer, voice a lowest meant to humiliate. "I've chaired this event for 25 years. I know every name on the list. You don't belong here." Zariah's reply was quiet, almost gentle. "You're right," she said softly. "Not on your list." Eleanor blinked, a flicker of confusion breaking through her certainty. Before she could respond, the senator's cane tapped the marble 3 times, commanding silence. "Young lady, this is a private event. You can either leave with what dignity you have left, or we'll ensure the police escort you." The orchestra stopped playing. The air turned heavy with tension and voyeurism. Zariah's pulse pounded, but her voice didn't shake. Do you treat all guests like this, Senator? Or only the ones who don't look like you? Gasps rippled across the room. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Others smirked, enjoying the spectacle. Bradley stepped forward, jaw tight. Watch your tone. Do you know who you're talking to? Zariah's eyes met his. I do. The question is, do you? The words landed harder than expected. For a split second, the arrogance faltered. Then Eleanor's laugh sliced through the tension. Oh, how charming. She thinks this is a movie. Sienna's live stream hit 50,000 viewers. Comments flooded in. She's so done. OMG, the nerve. Why is security taking so long? Wait, who is she, though? She looks important. The guard's radio crackled. Copy that. We're on our way. Zariah's gaze flicked toward the gilded auction table in the corner. The reason she'd attended in the first place. The proceeds were meant to fund STEM scholarships for underrepresented girls, a cause she quietly donated $50 million toward. A cause that would now carry the stain of this moment. She could walk away, or she could let them finish their show. Eleanor stepped closer, voice dripping with mock sympathy. You see, darling, money buys more than tickets. It buys breeding class invitation. Some people never understand that. Her diamond bracelet brushed against Zariah's arm as she gestured dismissively, an insult disguised as elegance. Remove her, the senator ordered again. The guard hesitated. Zariah turned to him, her tone soft but commanding. Before you do, check your event app, the top donor section. He frowned, fumbling with his device. The Lennox family rolled their eyes. Don't waste your time, Bradley muttered, but the guard's expression changed. His eyebrows lifted slightly. His eyes darted between the screen and Zariah. She gave him a small, knowing nod, a quiet signal to stay silent. Not yet. Eleanor noticed his hesitation. What are you waiting for? Ma'am, he said carefully, I think there might be... Now! The shout came from the senator, echoing through the atrium. The guard flinched, caught between power and conscience. 2 more security members appeared, forming a wall of black suits and earpieces. Cameras zoomed in. The humiliation was complete. Zariah's hand brushed the ruined hem of her gown. She looked around the glittering room. Every diamond, every glass of champagne, every face that had judged her. Then she smiled. A small, dangerous smile. The kind that promised the world had just made its final mistake. Understood, she said quietly. You'll regret this. And she turned away. The crowd laughed again, relieved, triumphant, oblivious. The Lennox family stood tall in their illusion of victory. Sienna's phone captured the final shot. Zariah's back as she walked away, dress stained but posture perfect. What the world saw that night was a woman humiliated. What they didn't see was a message she sent seconds later. A single encrypted text to her board of directors. Activate Clause 7. Within minutes, servers across New York lit up. A billion-dollar decision had been triggered. And by morning, the Lennox empire would begin to burn. If you are enjoying this story, please subscribe to support the channel. The elevator doors closed with a soft chime, cutting off the laughter from the ballroom above. For a moment, the world was silent. Just the hum of machinery and the muted sound of her breathing. Zariah Cole stood in the mirror reflection of the elevator, staring at the brown stain splattered across her navy gown. Champagne, chocolate, and humiliation, an expensive cocktail she hadn't ordered. Her mascara had held through the onslaught, but her eyes told another story. They weren't broken. They were calculating. As the elevator descended, her reflection multiplied infinitely across the mirrored panels, 100 versions of her staring back, each one asking the same question. Do you respond with rage or precision? The bell chimed softly. The doors opened into the hotel's private lounge, a place meant for high-profile guests seeking refuge from the glittering chaos above. The air smelled of sandalwood and quiet power. Her assistant, Naomi Pierce, shot up from the sofa the moment Zariah stepped in. Naomi's eyes widened as she took in the sight. Oh my God, what did they... Zariah raised a hand. Not a word. Naomi froze mid-sentence, her outrage collapsing into obedient silence. She handed Zariah a warm towel and a fresh glass of water. Zariah accepted both wordlessly, walking toward the tall window that overlooked the glittering skyline of Manhattan. From up here, the city pulsed like a living circuit board. Lights, motion, data, all connected, all humming beneath her control. Orion Technologies' headquarters stood just 4 blocks away, a tower of glass and steel that carried her name on its top floor. She pressed the towel against the stain on her gown, the faint heat seeping into her skin. How bad is it? Naomi swallowed. The video? Zariah turned her head slightly. Yes. Naomi hesitated. It's everywhere. Sienna Lennox streamed the whole thing live. Hashtag Galagate's trending #1 on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere. 57 million views already. Zariah didn't flinch. Her hand moved slowly, blotting the champagne from her dress. 57 million. Yes, ma'am. And growing. Naomi's voice wavered. They're calling you a social climber, a fraud, Zariah looked up sharply. Don't finish that sentence. Naomi nodded quickly, eyes shining with tears. Silence filled the room again, broken only by the faint hum of city lights. Zariah crossed the small vanity, placing her water down. Her reflection was still immaculate. Even now, her poise refused to crack. She dabbed the corner of her mouth with the towel, smearing away a trace of chocolate. How long have we been doing this, Naomi? She asked quietly. For years, ma'am. And how many times have I told you the same thing? Naomi thought for a moment. That's silence a strategy. Zariah's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. Exactly. She reached for her clutch, the same one Eleanor Lennox had mocked as a cheap knockoff. Inside it, her phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages stacked like dominoes across the screen. CNN, request for statement. Bloomberg, is a Cole Foundation affiliated with the Met Gala incident? Reuters, confirming CEO attendance at tonight's event. Zariah scrolled past the chaos until she reached a single thread at the top. The name was simple. Darwin Board, priority line. She opened it. Darwin, COO Clause 7 activated. Shall we proceed with formal notice to the Lennox Group? Zariah, not yet. Wait for the markets to open. Darwin, understood. Immediate freeze on defense contract renewal. Silent mode engaged. She set the phone down beside her drink, her heartbeat steady. Naomi broke the silence again, voice trembling with restrained fury. They humiliated you in front of everyone. They called you names I won't repeat. And they live-streamed it like sport. You should sue. You should. Zariah turned, her tone low but calm. If I sue, they'll paint it as emotion. If I retaliate, they'll call it anger. But if I act strategically, they'll call it reckoning. Naomi blinked, speechless. Zariah sat on the edge of the chaise lounge, her posture regal even in defeat. You know what happens when you grow up in rooms where no one expects you belong? You learn to listen more than you speak. You memorize who laughs at what, who signs what, who depends on who. They see your silence as submission. I see it as surveillance. Her voice softened, eyes unfocused on the skyline. Eleanor Lennox doesn't understand the kind of power that never announces itself. But she will. Naomi's phone buzzed with fresh alerts. It's bad, ma'am. Every major outlet's picking it up. The footage shows the slap, the accusations, everything. They're already parody edits. Zariah's gaze didn't move from the city below. Good. The world's watching. Let them. For the first time, Naomi looked confused. Good. Zariah turned toward her, eyes burning with quiet fire. Naomi, tell me, how many people do you think that family has humiliated in private? How many black women have been turned away at doors that their money helped build? Tonight, they did it on camera. They gave me witnesses. Naomi's breath caught. You're going to use the footage? I'm going to use everything. Zariah stood, walking to the bar cart. She poured herself a small measure of whiskey, her only indulgence. Power isn't just what you control. It's what you choose not to react to. She sipped slowly. And I choose not to react. Yet, Naomi's voice cracked softly. You don't deserve this. Zariah placed the glass down, her reflection in the window framed by the glow of the skyline. No, Naomi, they don't deserve me. She picked up her phone again. The screen glowed against her palm. Another message flashed, this time from a U.S. Department of Defense liaison office. Urgent. Orion Technologies remains our preferred contractor. Need confirmation Lennox Group's secondary bids. Are they compromised? A slow, almost imperceptible smile curved Zariah's lips. She typed, temporarily suspend all Lennox-related renewals pending ethical review. Her finger hovered before she added one final line. Effective immediately. She hit send. In an instant, the digital machinery of global defense contract began to shift. Algorithms, compliance systems, financial servers, all reconfigured around her single decision. A billion-dollar tide quietly began to turn. Naomi watched in awe. Ma'am, that's their biggest deal of the year. Zariah's tone was calm, clinical. She turned back toward the window. Far below, camera flashes still flickered at the hotel entrance. Reporters were gathering now. The story was spreading faster than the champagne had spilled. Naomi hesitated, then asked softly, "What will you tell the press?" "Nothing." "Nothing?" Zariah's gaze was steel. "They expect outrage. They expect tears. Let them wait. The silence will terrify them more." A soft vibration buzzed against the table. Another text, this one from her mother in Atlanta. "I saw what they did. Baby, come home. Let them have their world." Zariah stared at the message for a long time. Her throat tightened. For the first time that night, emotion cracked through the armor. She took a shaky breath and typed back, "They tried to take my dignity. I'll take their legacy instead." She slipped her phone into her clutch and rose to her full height. The woman who had entered this room had been humiliated. The one who walked out would become history. As she approached the elevator, Naomi followed. "Where are you going?" "Back upstairs." Naomi's eyes widened. "To them? After everything?" Zariah's expression didn't change. "You don't let someone write your ending while you're still in the room." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, the same one that had carried her down moments ago. Only now, she wasn't descending. She was ascending. As the doors closed, Zariah's reflection caught her eyes once more. The same woman, in the same gown. But something fundamental had changed. This time, the reflection didn't ask whether she'd respond with rage or precision. It already knew the answer. The ballroom was louder now. Louder, brighter, more electric, like the aftermath of a thunderstorm that thought it had already passed. From the mezzanine level, Zariah Cole watched the spectacle unfold. Waiters carried gold trays of canapes and champagne through clusters of tuxedos and couture gowns. The string quartet had recovered from its earlier stumble, but their music carried a nervous edge, as if even the violins knew something monumental was about to happen. Down below, the Lennox family basked in their own echo. Eleanor Lennox stood near the auction stage, her arm looped through her husband's, smiling for photographers who had already forgotten the woman they had humiliated 20 minutes earlier. Sienna Lennox's phone was still in her hand, the screen alive with notifications. "Babe, it's everywhere," she whispered to Bradley, her face glowing under the soft lighting. 3 million views in 20 minutes. This is literally breaking the internet. Bradley chuckled, confidence returning. Perfect. Public humiliation goes viral. Keeps the family name trending. Might even help Dad's re-election campaign. Their laughter melted into the hum of conversation. 1,000 glassy smiles concealing the same disease. Arrogance. Zariah descended the grand staircase. The soft light from the chandeliers framed her like an apparition. The crowd didn't notice at first. She moved too quietly for the chaos around her. But as she stepped onto the marble floor, one of the guests gasped. Then another. The sound traveled to the room like static, whispers chasing whispers. "She's back." "Oh, God, is she crazy?" Someone called security again. The Lennox matriarch turned slowly, wine glass poised in hand. The surprise on her face was brief, quickly replaced by annoyance. "You again." Zariah's heels clicked softly against the marble, each step deliberate. The same ruined gown, the same calm expression. But there was something different now, a gravity that seemed to shift the air around her. "I never got to finish what I came here for," she said evenly. Eleanor's lip curled. "And what was that? To steal desserts? Or attention?" A few guests chuckled nervously. Zariah didn't look at them. Her gaze was locked on Eleanor. "Neither. I came to give." The orchestra faltered again. Even the air conditioning seemed to hush itself. Zariah turned toward the museum director, a man who looked like he'd rather evaporate than mediate another scene. "Would you check your live donation board, please?" she said softly. He frowned, uncertain, but pulled out his tablet. His eyes scanned the screen. Then they widened. His hands began to tremble. I think there's a mistake," he stammered. "There's no mistake," Zariah replied. The screen, still connected to the main projector for the ongoing auction, flickered once before updating automatically. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. At the top of the donation leaderboard, above every hedge fund, every dynasty, every corporate titan, a new name appeared in gold lettering. The Cole Foundation, $75 million. The audience turned as one, the realization crashing over them like a wave. "That's impossible," Sienna muttered, eyes darting between her phone and the board. "That wasn't there a second ago." Zariah's voice was calm, controlled. "It wasn't supposed to be announced until the end of the evening. I prefer to donate quietly." Eleanor's composure cracked. That can't be. The Cole Foundation doesn't." Zariah smiled faintly. "Doesn't what? Exist?" Check the name of its founder. A few guests already had. The murmurs grew louder. Someone's phone screen glowed with the open page of a Forbes profile. Another whispered, "Oh my God, she's..." Eleanor's voice rose sharply. "What trick is this?" Zariah's eyes lifted toward a large display that still hovered above the auction stage. "No trick," she said softly. "Just truth." With a simple nod, she motioned toward the museum's AV technician, a young man who'd been following the scene with a mix of horror and fascination. "Would you mind?" He hesitated, then tapped the screen. The image shifted from the donation list to a single glowing page. Zariah Cole, founder and CEO, Orion Technologies net worth, for $0.1 billion industry. Aerospace and defense ranked number 46. Forbes' world's most powerful women. Gasps filled the air like oxygen catching fire. Zariah continued, her voice steady but sharp as glass. Orion Technologies is the primary contractor for the Defense Department's AI integration systems. Some of you might know it under your company's procurement list, perhaps listed under Lennox Group Subsidiary Partnerships. Bradley's face drained of color. "Wait, what?" Zariah looked directly at him. 42% of your company's revenue comes from defense tech developed by my firm. My systems power your satellites, your data encryption, your predictive algorithms. You sell what I build. The color returned to his cheeks. Only this time, it was rage. "You think this little stunt will..." "Stunt." Zariah tilted her head slightly, the faintest trace of pity crossing her expression. "I don't do stunts, Mr. Lennox. I do numbers. And right now, the only number that matters is 1 billion. That's the value of the contracts I'm reassigning as of this moment." A collective gasp spread like wildfire. Eleanor's glass slipped from her hand, crashing onto the marble floor. You can't." Zariah stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper, meant for family, but heard by everyone. "Can I? You made the mistake of assuming I came here to impress you. I came here to evaluate you. Tonight was your company's final review." The senator's jaw tightened, his voice a low growl. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't risk." Zariah raised her phone, pressing a single button. A soft ping echoed through the ballroom speakers. "Contract reassignment confirmed." An automated voice announced from the audio system, clear, robotic, final. Reporters in the crowd fumbled for their phones. The whispers turned to chaos. Sienna's live stream was still running, capturing every word in crystal quality. Her audience of 1.2 million was now watching live as her family's empire unraveled. Comments flooded faster than she could read. "Holy, she's a donor? This is history." They humiliated a billionaire. This is what power looks like. Zariah looked at the trembling matriarch, her tone measured and devastatingly calm. You once said money buys breeding. I disagree. It reveals it. Eleanor's lips quivered. We didn't know who you were. No, Zariah interrupted softly. You just didn't care. The museum director, voice shaking, stepped forward. Ms. Cole, on behalf of the board, I can't begin to... She stopped him with a gesture. No apologies tonight, just policy changes. Ensure your future guest lists reflect the values your exhibitions claim to honor. He nodded quickly, eyes wide. Zariah turned back to family. As for you, I suggest you prepare a statement for your shareholders by morning. The markets react poorly to bigotry, and even worse to incompetence. Bradley tried to speak, but no sound came out. Sienna lowered her phone, finally realizing her live stream had become their public execution. The senator stepped forward, desperate. You don't want to do this. We can make this right. A misunderstanding like this doesn't need. This isn't a misunderstanding, Zariah said coldly. It's a reckoning. She took one step closer, and the entire room instinctively parted around her. Even those who had laughed before now stood in reverent silence. You taught your followers and your friends to see me as small. I'll teach the world how small you truly are. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried like thunder. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded piece of parchment, a letter printed on museum letterhead. Before you call security again, she said, holding it up, this is my invitation, signed personally by the chair of the board, accepting my foundation's endowment for the new Cole Wing for modern innovation. A photo of the signed agreement flashed on the display behind her, projected for all to see. The Lennox family stared up at it, their humiliation now permanent, public, and irreversible. The crowd erupted, gasps, whispers, the hum of history being written. Zariah slipped her phone back into her clutch, the movement elegant, unhurried. Next time, she said softly, look before you decide who doesn't belong. And with that, she turned toward the staircase, her heels echoing in the marble silence. As she reached the top, she paused. Below her, reporters swarmed the Lennox family. The once golden dynasty now looked like statues, beautiful, brittle, and cracking under the weight of their own arrogance. Zariah didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply exhaled, the quiet breath of someone reclaiming oxygen that had been stolen from her. By the time she stepped outside into the cool night air, the first headlines were already breaking across phone screens. Billionaire CEO publicly humiliated, then destroys Lennox empire in live reversal. From scandal to shock, $1 billion defense contract withdrawn after Gala incident. Zariah lifted her chin toward the skyline, the city lights glinting in her eyes. She whispered to herself, that's one. The night wasn't over. It had just begun. The night burned through New York like a secret too big to contain. By morning, it was everywhere. Every news channel, every feed, every phone. Hashtag Cole vs. Lennox had trended for 10 consecutive hours. The clip of Zariah's calm, devastating reveal had been replayed so many times that her single sentence, it's not a misunderstanding, it's a reckoning, had become the new mantra of digital justice. But while social media fed on spectacle, Zariah was orchestrating war. Quietly, methodically, the first boardroom was already waiting when she walked in. It was 6 a.m. The glass-walled top floor of Orion Technologies headquarters pulsed with data screens, analysts, and a quiet hum of control. Manhattan's skyline glowed behind her like a field of stars. Zariah took her seat at the head of the table, her hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. The executives lining the room, 12 of the most powerful minds in aerospace and cyber defense, waited without speaking. She set her phone down on the glass table. Begin, she said. Darwin Holt, her COO, projected a financial dashboard on the wall. It was a galaxy of red and green, the pulse of global money. As of 4:12 a.m., the Lennox Group stock dropped 22% on pre-market trading. Another 12 projected before open. Estimated losses, roughly $480 million and falling. Zariah's gaze never flickered. Contract status? Orion's legal team confirmed termination of all active Linux defense partnerships. Clause 7 invoked successfully. We redirected their satellite data network bids to Aegis Systems, minority-owned, fully vetted, clean ethics record. Good. Zariah's tone was ice over steel. And government response? Darwin hesitated. The Pentagon issued a formal statement at 5 a.m. They stand by Orion Technologies as their sole AI defense provider. They're citing unacceptable conduct by partner institutions. Zariah leaned back in her chair. Perfect phrasing. The PR director, a nervous woman named Lydia, cleared her throat. Ms. Cole, if I may, the internet's on fire. Every outlet wants a statement. If we stay silent, we risk. Zariah raised a hand, stopping her. We risk nothing. Let the silence speak. Lydia swallowed. The Lennox family's already posted a written apology. Zariah's laugh was soft, dangerous. They posted a damage control memo, not an apology. Darwin nodded. They also issued an emergency board call. Half their shareholders are panicking. The rest are demanding they step down. A faint smile touched Zariah's lips. Then we let gravity do the work. When arrogance rises too high, all you need to do is remove the air. By noon, that gravity had become a landslide. The Lennox Group's financial empire, 3 generations of influence built on oil, defense, and lobbying, was unraveling in real time. Every journalist wanted blood. CNBC played footage of the Gala alongside graphs showing stock collapse. Public humiliation turns corporate meltdown. Orion terminates $1 billion Lennox contracts amid scandal. In the background, leaked footage surfaced of the Gala's live stream. Every insult, every laugh, every racial undertone that had been broadcast to millions. Sienna's own voice, she probably found that dress at Macy's, looped endlessly, followed by the headline, Arrogance caught on camera, privilege meets power. By mid-afternoon, protesters stood outside the Lennox Tower on Fifth Avenue, holding signs that read, Dignity isn't for sale and coal for change. Inside her office, Zariah watched the footage in silence. Naomi stood behind her, speechless at the sheer scale of it all. You didn't just beat them, Naomi whispered. You erased them. Zariah shook her head. No, I revealed them. They did the rest. Her phone buzzed. A call from familiar contact. Secretary Hughes, U.S. Department of Defense. Zariah, came a measured voice through the speaker. You made quite the headline. I didn't intend to, she said coolly. You never do. That's why it works. I wanted to inform you. Lennox's replacement contracts are confirmed. Aegis Systems and Helios Dynamics will assume their projects under your oversight. You just restructured half of America's defense tech supply chain overnight. Zariah glanced out the window. The clouds over Manhattan were splitting open into sunlight. Then maybe the system finally deserves an upgrade. The secretary chuckled softly. Between us, I wish more people fought battles the way you do. Quietly. Efficiently, he corrected. When the call ended, Naomi exhaled shakily. Do you think they'll ever recover? Zariah didn't answer immediately. She reached for the glass of water on her desk, her movements deliberate, meditative. Recovering isn't the same as learning. They'll survive, but they'll never walk into a room again without remembering the night they laughed at the wrong woman. Across town, the Lennox estate was chaos. Eleanor Lennox sat in her gold-trimmed study, staring blankly at a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. News anchors were calling her racist. Donors were withdrawing. Her charity board had just voted to suspend her, pending investigation into discriminatory behavior. Her daughter Sienna was crying on the couch. Phone shattered beside her. Her Instagram account had lost 800,000 followers overnight. Brands were terminating sponsorships by the hour. Bradley was pacing by the window, tie loose, voice shaking. We're hemorrhaging liquidity. Every investor's pulling out. We need to fix this. Eleanor turned her glassy eyes toward him. Fix this? How do you fix the woman who owns the world? Senator Lennox stormed into the room, face flushed. The president's office just called. The ethics committee wants an inquiry into my contracts. My career's finished. The silence that followed was colder than the marble floor. Beneath them, Eleanor whispered, "She's dismantling us piece by piece." By evening, the story had crossed oceans. London, Tokyo, Dubai, Johannesburg. Global headlines framed it as both a scandal and a turning point. The woman who humbled a dynasty. Corporate discrimination meets billion-dollar consequence. Zariah Cole, the quiet revolution of power. Business schools were already drafting case studies. CEOs scrambled to implement ethics clauses before their own reputations collapsed. Stock analysts coined a new phrase, the Cole effect, when discrimination triggers financial collapse through reputational chain reaction. Zariah didn't grant interviews. She didn't post statements. She didn't even attend meetings in person. Her silence became myth. Late that night, she sat alone in her penthouse, the city below glowing like a circuit she could control with a thought. Naomi entered quietly, holding a thick folder. The Lennox Group filed for Chapter 11 protection. They're finished. Zariah looked up, expression unreadable. No one's finished. They're just beginning to understand. Naomi hesitated. What now? Zariah stood and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window. The skyline reflected in her eyes. Now we use it. Their fall wasn't about revenge. It was a mirror. Every powerful institution saw itself in their arrogance. She turned slightly. We build something better. Naomi smiled faintly. What does better look like? Zariah took a breath. A world where no one is humiliated into silence. Where wealth doesn't excuse cruelty. Where power corrects itself before it destroys itself. Her phone buzzed again. Hundreds of unread messages from journalists, activists, CEOs, even senators. One subject line stood out. Invitation. World Economic Forum, Davos. Keynote speaker offer. Zariah stared at it for a long moment, then powered off the phone. Not yet, she whispered. Let the noise fade first. Then I'll speak. She poured a small glass of champagne, her first since the Gala. The fizz rose quietly, glowing gold under city lights. Naomi tilted her head. To what? Zariah lifted the glass. To clarity. They clinked glasses softly, the sound delicate and final. Outside, the skyline shimmered. Below, stock tickers still scrolled the headlines. Lennox empire collapses after discrimination scandal. Estimated losses exceed $1.02 billion. Zariah's reflection in the glass didn't smile. She didn't need to, because the world already knew who had rewritten the rules. The world didn't move on. It evolved. 6 months after the night of the Gala, Zariah Cole's name had become a symbol, whispered in boardrooms and echoed in classrooms, analyzed in think tanks and studied in MBA programs. The Cole effect wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was policy. And yet, when the invitation came from the World Economic Forum, Zariah hesitated. For weeks, she had avoided interviews, declined awards, and ignored panels begging for her perspective. Every headline tried to define her. The woman who humbled the Lennox empire. The CEO who changed corporate ethics forever. The quiet billionaire who made privilege pay its price. But she didn't want to be defined by what she destroyed. She wanted to be remembered for what she built. The air in Davos was thin and electric. Cameras lined the snow-dusted walkway as motorcades arrived one after another. Ministers, billionaires, innovators, and presidents all converged on the same mountain fortress of ambition. Yet the anticipation wasn't for them. It was for her. Zariah's car pulled up to the entrance. No entourage, no flash. Just her, in a black wool coat and gloves, stepping into the cold like someone who had already made peace with history. Inside, the main hall shimmered with light. Giant screens displayed her face beside the session title. The new currency, dignity, power, and systemic change. She took the stage as the audience rose to their feet. The applause was thunderous, yet she didn't smile. She stood still for a moment, letting the sound crest and fade, her gaze sweeping across the crowd of leaders who, 6 months ago, might have laughed at someone like her. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, intimate, like the quiet that follows a storm. 6 months ago, I stood in a ballroom where laughter was used as a weapon, where wealth confused itself for worth, where silence was mistaken for weakness. The room held its breath. They tried to strip me of dignity in public. So I reminded them that dignity doesn't need permission. It demands accountability. That moment wasn't about me. It was about every person who's ever been dismissed, disrespected, or underestimated simply because power couldn't see their reflection. The crowd was silent now, an entire mountain of influence listening to one woman reshape its moral code. What followed wasn't vengeance. It was correction. A billion-dollar reminder that when discrimination is expensive, people suddenly care about fairness. A ripple of laughter, not cruel this time, but understanding. Zariah continued, but here's the truth. Revenge doesn't build anything. I don't want the Lennox family destroyed. I want them and all of us to do better, because the real test of justice isn't who wins. It's what we change. Her words hung in the air like light refracting through glass. Across the globe, her reforms had already begun reshaping industries. In Washington, the Corporate Equity Accountability Act had just passed, requiring every federal contractor to disclose diversity, ethics, and inclusion metrics annually. Inspired by her case, it tied public contracts directly to moral conduct. In London, investment banks began embedding coal clauses into partnership agreements, allowing immediate contract termination if executives or family members engaged in public discrimination or harassment. In Tokyo, Fortune 500 CEOs attended the first Leadership and Dignity summit co-funded by Orion Technologies, where executives studied how corporate culture impacts global reputation. In New York, the Metropolitan Museum's new coal wing for modern innovation had opened, its entrance inscribed with the words, "Power is measured not by what you own, but by what you elevate." Eleanor Lennox herself attended the ribbon cutting, standing beside Zariah. The two women had met privately months earlier. Eleanor's transformation wasn't quick or painless, but it was genuine. She had resigned from all social boards, donated millions to diversity initiatives, and launched a foundation called Learning to Listen. When she stepped up to the microphone that day, her voice trembled. Zariah Cole didn't ruin me. She revealed me. She showed me that privilege without empathy is just poverty in disguise. Zariah had accepted her handshake, not out of forgiveness, but completion. Some stories didn't need closure. They needed evolution. Back in Davos, Zariah concluded her speech. We live in a world obsessed with disruption, disrupting markets, disrupting industries. But maybe what needs disruption most is our idea of power. True disruption happens when empathy becomes the bottom line, when ethics become profitable. She paused, scanning the crowd. That's what I call the quiet revolution, the moment when power learns to listen. The applause rose again, long and sustained. She bowed her head slightly and stepped off stage as flashbulbs exploded like lightning. Later that evening, Zariah stood alone on the balcony of her suite, overlooking the white expanse of the Swiss Alps. The snow fell gently, muffling the sounds of distant chatter and champagne. She leaned on the railing, her breath misting in the cold air. Her phone buzzed. A message from Naomi. Naomi, it's done. The UN voted to adopt the coal standards for global business ethics. Every multinational will have to comply by next year. Zariah smiled faintly. Zariah, history moves quietly. She set the phone down and looked out into the night. In the valley below, floodlights on the Forum shimmered on the snow, each one reflecting upward like a constellation. Somewhere down there, young women, scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, were walking into rooms that used to close their doors. That thought brought her peace. Months later, Orion Technologies released its annual report. The opening page wasn't financial. It was philosophical. Dignity is the new capital. Empathy is the new infrastructure. We build systems not for profit, but for permanence. Underneath the statement was a single signature, Zariah Cole, CEO. Eleanor Lennox's family story had become a modern parable. Her son Bradley stepped down from his company and joined a nonprofit incubator for minority startups. Sienna became an advocate for online accountability, creating a mentorship program for young women who had suffered public shaming. Senator Lennox co-authored the Ethical Leadership Act, becoming a rare bipartisan hero. And Eleanor? She spent her final years volunteering anonymously at the same scholarship foundation Zariah had once funded. She never asked for recognition again. 2 years later, Zariah stood once more in front of cameras. Not in a ballroom, not at a conference, but at a high school graduation in Atlanta. She was dressed simply in white, standing beside a group of young black girls in blue caps and gowns. The same scholarship fund that had once been overshadowed by scandal had now sent its first cohort to college. One of the students, a shy, dark-skinned girl with bright eyes, hugged Zariah and whispered, "Because of you, I know I belong anywhere." Zariah's throat tightened. She placed a hand over the girl's shoulder. "No," she said softly. "Because of you, the world knows we all do." The crowd erupted in applause, but Zariah didn't step back. She stayed there among them, equal, human, grounded. The cameras captured that moment. A billionaire not standing above others, but among them. That photo became iconic. Framed in magazines, shared across continents, etched into history books. The caption was simple. Power. Redefined. That night, back in her quiet home, Zariah opened her journal, a small black book she rarely shared with anyone. On the final page, she wrote, "Humiliation is temporary. Dignity is permanent. They tried to reduce me to a scene. I became a standard." She closed the book and set it beside her window. Outside the city glowed, and somewhere, deep within that light, the echo of her words still moved quietly through boardrooms, classrooms, and every space where power once went unchecked. A reminder that silence, when held with purpose, can shake empires. If you like this story, please subscribe to support this channel.